Welcome back. 2 videos in 2 days. It's been a while since we have done that. But anyway, today we're going to go ahead and break down Tempo, the newest Tier 1 deck. Is this deck Tier 1? I think it is. In the last 2 weeks alone, this deck has 17 tops out of a total of 124, giving it well over that 10% mark that we kind of look for when we talk about it is a deck tier 1. At least to me, if a deck performs at over 10% of top cut, that is something that could be tier 1. So getting ready for Las Vegas, I said I expect like 5 to 7. I'm going to guess 5 if I had to pick tempo decks to make top 64 at DLC Las Vegas. So whether you're trying to prep against this deck or you're trying to build this deck, this video hopefully will help you out and let me know how you like this style of deck breakdown moving forward. So first and foremost, I want to highlight a few cards. These are cards that you're definitely going to see in this deck, and I will say for the most part the whole Merfolk Flynn 1-2 punch has gone away. However, a handful of these lists still played Merfolk, but that whole aggro start, force you to discard strategy from set 3 and 4 isn't really the focus of the deck anymore. Instead, you still have your bouncers and your snake and your fox. You still have Ursula to rip songs, especially with Steel Song being so good. No surprise there. The Merlin package is just crazy good with your goat and your rabbit. But some of the new cards we got being Elsa, the Rush Evasive 2/5. She is just a house. And Clarabelle being able to just get you cards to your hand. She is very, very strong. And obviously we can play the shift, so having her in there is very good. It's kind of like one of your boss cards, if you will. And then obviously you're playing Amethyst, so friends on the other side. Out of these 17 lists, these cards and these ratios were played in every single list. So if you're looking to build this deck and you want a successful core, I believe there's 30 cards here, so this is half the deck only. You get to be a little more fluid with the rest of the deck. Some of these decks are going to have bigger cores, and that doesn't mean you have to go outside of the core, because guess what? When there's only 10, the core is 40 cards. As it gets bigger, sometimes cards come out. But the more tops a deck gets, the more refined it gets, and the more streamlined it gets. So if you're looking to build tempo, this is probably something you should start out with. 3 Clarabelles, which can actually double up as that removal as well if you have the 2 extra ink. So playing her not on 1 actually gets you some benefit out of her as well. I will have the final deck list, Dreamborn, also linked down below. Then we got 4 Snake, 4 Ursula, 4 Mimfox. Again, remember those highlighted cards? That's pretty much what we're looking at for the core here. It's not always going to happen where the highlighted cards are the entire core minus the 1, but in this case I felt that it was noteworthy to point them out. But now we get to see what ratios they're all played at. So Goat actually was only played at 3 in one list. 16 out of 17 played Goat at 4. But again, this is the core, meaning the bare bones, the minimum. And 3 is the minimum that was played. So Goat goes to 3. Same with Clarabelle. I think she was 3 lists played at 3. Otherwise, the other 14 played Clarabelle 1 cost up at 4. 2 Elsas, but we see Elsa saw some play from anywhere from 2 to 4. So again, one of those cards that just fluctuates in ratios. And then Clarabelle, the big one. Not too common as a 4 of, usually a 3 of. But never less than 2. So Clarabelle is just a very strong card. Again, just super consistent, kind of replacing Diablo for that recursive advantage. She's harder to get rid of than Diablo, and, well, she's inkable. And just overall, the card, Diablo is, I don't know, kind of gone by the wayside, if you will. So we kind of now see some highlighted cards, and we see the core. So again, this is the bare bones. If you're building the deck, put these 30 cards right into Dreamborn and then build the rest. Not saying you have to. I'm just saying if you want to have success, it's proven 17 times over that this is a good list to go with. So if we're going to, wrong button. We're going to go ahead now and look at some tech cards. So these tech cards now are cards that were played. Ignore the ones they weren't played at 1 necessarily. These are just other cards that saw play throughout these 17 tops. Chernobog's Followers, really no surprise because, I mean, it's just kind of, one of those Amethyst cards that pops up. Likewise, Rafiki being the Challenger +3. Again, another card that actually saw play in quite a bit of the list. Cogsworth being able to play it and give rush to one of your other characters is a nice cheeky play, and we saw him as a 2 of in the majority of these lists that we're topping. Again, Cursed Merfolk did see play in like 5 or 6 lists, so definitely a strong option. Gives you a quick aggro start, forces them to have removal or to discard, so it's not a bad card by any means. It's just a little less played than it used to be. Then we have Diablo, not very common. Same with the Merryweather. Both of these cards are kind of just like, someone played them, so they make their way into here, but I probably wouldn't play either one. And Pegasus too, it's an evasive on turn 1, and you pair it up with the Crab. You don't play the big shift Pegasus. You just kind of, again, use him in tandem on 1, get a couple questing turns out of it, and then on 3 you drop the Crab, and then you can take out bigger evasive threats with your Pegasus that way. Banzai, this card has been seeing quite a bit of play. 2 cost, uninkable, 3/2 stat line, quest for 2. So the 3 strength and questing for 2 make him actually really strong. And this card has all but replaced Flynn Rider and even Cursed Merfolk to a degree, because trying to keep the uninkable costs low. And that's something that this deck absolutely thrives on, is the uninkable cost of this deck is incredibly low, and the overall cost of the deck also is not very much. The list we're about to show you in a little bit comes in at about $173 and only 9 uninkable cards. So it's very consistent as far as your ink curve goes, and it's actually pretty budget friendly as far as that goes as well. The Mother Gothel being able to pay 3 ink and bounce, kind of like we saw with the Clarabelle 1 cost. It's just a card that later game, it does have potential for added value where you can pay ink to get an additional effect off. Sir Hiss, kind of how we mentioned the Pegasus plus Crab, getting the extra boost to be able to take out evasive threats. Sir Hiss is a 3/1 evasive, so kind of does the same thing without needing the Crab. But I mean, with a Crab, it's a 6/1, not too shabby. Maleficent is there as just a consistency card. Crab also played in the vast majority of lists at 3 of. Crab's just really strong, especially when you can sit there and bounce it and reuse it. Anna's a really good card from the new set, and just the fact that she has 3 different abilities that you get to choose from. Only 3 lists were playing her though. Maybe it's because she's uninkable. Maybe it's because there's just so many good 3-cost cards that you really try to hit on your curve, but she has that utility of the multiple effects. Then we see the 3-cost Clarabelle also in there, just a potential card draw. Only one list was playing her as a 1 of. I think it was also one that was playing 3 of the 1-drop Clarabelles. Diablo did see some play too, so don't rule out playing Diablo just because he wasn't in our deck core any longer. The next 2 cards also saw a ton of play. Kit Cloud Kicker, typically just a 1 of, being able to bounce your opponent's card, just slow their tempo, slow them down a little bit. And then Lyle Tiberius being able to grant Reckless to your opponent. In addition to that, when your character gets banished, then they lose lore in the process. So it actually just affects them multiple ways. And both of these cards are really strong. Typically, Lyle is a 2 of and Kit is a 1 of. Madam Mim Elephant. I've been so torn on this card. I played it at 2 in a lot of lists, if at all. Didn't really see much play in this deck either. It's, in theory, sounds good, but when it comes down to it, Fox and Snake are still just better. Cricky. I like my Cricky. Oh man, when are we getting Mushu? But anyway, we have Cricky for now. 3, and granting the +3 challenger is really strong across the board when on play, especially in a deck that can go ahead and bounce it. So then your next turn you can quest for 3, bounce your Cricky, and maybe even play it again that same turn. Genie going all the way back. Another card that on play you get to bounce one of your opponent's cards. The thing here though is you get to pick with Genie, right? But for making your opponent pick with Gothel, Gothel not only has 4 strength, which is actually pretty relevant, 6 willpower, which is also really good. She's also inkable and offers the shift play line. So I think overall, Mother Gothel's just the better 6-drop. Again, Genie you get to pick, so that's kind of beneficial, whereas Gothel they get to pick. However, those other 3 benefits I think put Gothel ahead of Genie. Ursula Sea Witch Queen saw play in 15 out of the 17 lists. I want to say, don't quite quote me on that, but it was the vast majority. And I mean, you have the shift potential. You get to shut down Steel Songs pretty hard, force them to hard cast them, and you're not really playing much for songs, so it doesn't affect you as much. But in addition to that, when she quests, you get to exert one of your opponent's characters, and that is an effect that I think gets a little underrated when I hear people talk about this card. Elsa, Spirit of Winter. I like this card so much. I'm not huge on her in this deck. However, she did make her way into one topping list as a 2 of. One of the more aggressive decks that was playing the Merfolk and Flynn and the Banzai also played the Befuddle. So 1 out of these 17 lists was a more aggro-focused build. And as such, you know, cards like that come in, because if you can hit like Merfolk, if they don't have an answer, then you come back with Banzai or the Flynn. Otherwise, you come back with the Befuddle, and it just allows you to jump out really early on your opponent and get a lot of lore. Bibbidi Boppidi Boo, another bounce card. Song, singable, bounce, play. Works really good with Goat. Saw play in just 1 list. You're Welcome, a nice little out. Saw probably close to 50% of the list. You can out your opponent's item, location, characters, whatever, and then they get to draw 2 cards. It's kind of like Yzma, but hits a little bit more, costs a little bit less. It doesn't put the body on board, so there is that. However, it's a song, so it is still singable. Emerald Chromacon, being able to bounce your opponent's characters in their turn when your character gets banished. One of the few cards that interact with your opponent on their turn, and it can be actually pretty good. Typically a 1 of, probably played close to like a third of the list, give or take. So it's less than half, but it has seen some play. And then lastly, the Library and Queen's Castle. This deck, unlike Ruby Amethyst, isn't really focused on the locations. However, both of these locations are incredibly strong, and don't sleep on them. Test them out, try them out. I actually do like them both in the list. And speaking of the list, here we go. Tier 1, Tempo Control. Overall, this is the list that if I were playing the deck, I put the core in here and then I just kind of filled in the blanks. And I am fairly certain that this is an exact list that has topped. Maybe not quite exactly, but within like 3 cards. I'd have to go back and look just inadvertently. Again, not just trying to take their exact lists. But when you look at 17 of them and you're seeing what works and then you're going through making your choices, you're going to come out pretty similar at the end of the day. Unfortunately, net decking bad, winning bad. Doesn't mean you can't be creative. Definitely look at Joshua Paltry, his Amber Amethyst list that won DLC Atlanta. So you can always homebrew, do that. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to play an optimal deck, you're going to have to net deck. That's the way it is. Back in the day, we didn't do that. Back in the day, we didn't have social media and networking and everything that we have nowadays to make it so easy either. Otherwise, you would have net decked, and you're lying if you say you wouldn't. Okay, that's enough rambling on that. So anyway, we're going with 2 Cogsworth, the one that grants rush to another character when you play him. So essentially, you play a character, you play him on that same turn, you grant the character you just played rush, and now they can challenge your opponent. He's only a 1 cost, so it makes it worth it. 2 Rafikis. The challenger is just really nice. Things like Daisy Duck that have high willpower. Again, you want to be able to deal with threats as fast as possible, so having that challenger is pretty nice. 4 Clarabelles. Not only is she the item removal, but that shift Clarabelle playline, you want to get to Clarabelle as soon as you can. Snake, yeah, it's the core. We're going to play it. And then Banzai. I like this card just, again, that aggro approach. I like to be quicker. I like to be fast. And I wanted to play Merfolk, but I'm like, oh, man, it only costs 1 more. The discard don't matter that much. And he's 3 strength. 3 strength versus 0. So that's a big reason that we went with the Banzai instead of the Cursed Merfolk. Mother Gothel then, playing her on 2 with just the couple, offers another shift line potential. 4 Ursulas, 4 Madame M. Fox, 3 Merlin Crabs. Again, I really like Crab, and like I said, the Kit Lyle ratios we've been seeing pretty commonly at the 1-2. I wanted to fit 2 Kit in there, but I ended up at 62 cards, so I had to go back through, and I'm like, okay, 1 Kit can come out. We'll just go ahead and follow the ratios on the other guys there. I think it was Kit and Library were the 2 cards I cut, because I came out to 62 when I put the list. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, that's actually not too bad. And we're only at 9 uninkable cards, so I can keep my uninkables. But overall, really liking the list. 4 Goat, 4 Rabbit. Again, 3 is the minimum for Goat, but the majority of players do play 4. I like 4. I want 4. 3 Elsas. 2's more common, but at the end of the day, I think she's really, really strong, and I liked her at 3. Cricky, Mother Gothel, each as 2. Ursula, another power card, at 2. And then Clarabelle at 3. Going into our songs, we have the 4 friends on the other side. No surprises there whatsoever. 2, You're Welcomes. Again, even using this card on yourself to draw 2 cards can be really, really good, especially like just scenario-wise. Sometimes you want to just remove that threat so your opponents say can't. I don't have a good example on hand, actually. I really don't. I almost use Robin Hood, but they would just quest and get the 2 anyway. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess a Maui, maybe. But you could just hit their Maui, let them draw 2. I don't know. I was going to say something really smart, and it ended up not working very well for me. 1 Chromacon. I almost cut this card instead of the Kit or the Library. But at the end of the day, I feel like it just forces a lot of weird interaction where your opponent has to out it or get rid of it. Otherwise, it's going to impact them quite a bit. With the Rise, because it's been there for 3 formats now, with Popsicle overtaking and becoming the #1 deck lately, if item hate starts to just really take over, maybe Chromacon comes out, but as of right now, I think Chromacon should stay in. The 1 Library, 2 Castles. Again, we're not focused on our locations as much as, say, Ruby Amethyst is, but overall, I think that they're strong and work in tandem very well together. So if I were to go to Vegas playing Tempo, this is the list I would play. I think it's really solid across the board. I like what the deck offers. It's kind of an off meta, but still meta choice. Again, topping about 14%. Links to the spreadsheet and all that good information is down below, so make sure you go check that out. Thank you guys for watching. Come back tomorrow. We're going to break down another top tier deck. And until next time, guys, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. You guys are awesome. Take care.